This happened almost 8 years ago. I was 35 at the time, and I thought a camping trip would help clear my head. I was so stressed from my divorce. I set up my tent at a quiet spot surrounded by tall pine trees. It was just me in the woods, or so I thought. I remember it was a clear evening. I could hear the rustling of leaves in the wind. The sun was setting, and the shadows were stretching long across the ground. I made a small fire to cook some dinner. As the flames danced, I felt a bit more relaxed. I finished eating, brushed my teeth, and climbed into my sleeping bag. That's when I heard it. Faint laughter. It seemed to carry through the trees from far away. I tried to convince myself it was just distant campers, but I was alone on my trail. The laughter made the hairs on my neck stand up. There was something off, but I tried to shake it off. On the second night, I lay awake and thought I heard footsteps, just soft crunches against the forest floor. My heart raced, but I told myself it was probably squirrels or deer. As I closed my eyes again, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was out there, watching me. I dismissed it as paranoia. I was supposed to be relaxing. Each night grew stranger. I saw shadows flitting between the trees, but they vanished the moment I turned my head. They were always there, and yet never close enough for me to get a good look. I felt a chill whenever I noticed pale eyes stare back at me from the tree line. Was I imagining it? I had just come from a messy divorce. Maybe I thought the woods were messing with my mind. One day I found symbols carved into tree trunks near my tent. Circles and lines. They looked out of place. My heart raced and I felt uneasy. I should have left, but something kept me there. I wanted to figure it out. I couldn't. Just when I thought I'd seen too much, the laughter returned. It echoed through the darkness, closer than before. I felt sick, but I stayed. Then one night, I saw him. He was just standing there, staring at me. I gasped, asking if he was okay. He didn't answer. I turned around to grab my flashlight. Nobody was there. I drove home the next day, feeling more lost than before. I barely slept. Even now, I'm haunted by that night. I still wonder about the laughter, the shadows, and the symbols. I remember the man's eyes, wide and scared. What did he see? 7 years later, I still can't shake the feeling that something was out there. Something watching me. I wish I could forget. But maybe the woods got into my head. What was I really dealing with those nights? That's something I still can't answer. 8 years had passed since that camping trip, but the memories still lingered like smoke in the air. I tried to move on, I really did. But the trauma kept creeping back. It was the little things, an eerie laugh on the radio, shadows flickering at the edge of my vision, that pulled me back to those woods. Last week, I decided to visit a local library to find any information about the area where I camped. Maybe I could uncover the truth. The librarian was a kind older woman who listened as I recounted my story. She nodded knowingly when I mentioned the symbols. She said they were old, remnants of the early settlers. But she warned me, there are still mysteries deep in those woods, stories you might not want to hear. Her words sent a chill down my spine, but I pressed on. I needed more. I flipped through local history books and stumbled upon a faded photograph from the early 1900s. It was a group of men and women standing in front of a cabin, but what caught my eye were the symbols behind them, etched into the bark of a massive tree. They looked exactly like the ones I had seen. My heart raced as I leaned in closer. What does this mean? I thought. The librarian noticed my reaction and approached me. Those symbols are thought to mark places of significance, maybe to guide or protect. Some say they're even connected to rituals. Rituals. The word hung in the air like a storm cloud. I felt a wave of nausea. Was this something to do with the laughter? The man I saw? If those symbols had been a warning, what did I walk into? I decided to return to the woods. It felt reckless, but I needed closure. I gathered my gear, anxious and excited at the same time. I drove back to the campsite, sunlight fading fast as I set up my tent again. The woods felt different during the day, calm and inviting. But as night fell, tension thickened the air. Once again, the shadows danced between the trees. I tried to tell myself that I was being ridiculous. I was back in a familiar spot, but then I heard it. Laughter. Not the faint echo from years ago, but loud and mischievous, like someone was right outside my tent. A stomach-churning realization settled over me. This wasn't some haunted memory. Something was still here, and it recognized me. Trembling but determined, I unzipped my tent to confront whatever was outside. The laughter stopped. There was only silence. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of movement. A shadow darted between the trees, fast and fluid. I called out, "Who's there?" But it felt useless. My heart raced as the eeriness enveloped me again. I reached for my flashlight, shining it into the darkness. That's when I saw it. A figure, tall, thin, and almost featureless, stood at the edge of the clearing watching me. My breath caught in my throat. I realized that I hadn't just uncovered stories or symbols. I was learning that some mysteries are better left untouched. But before I could process this thought, the figure took a step toward me. I didn't stick around to find out what it wanted. I stumbled backward into my tent, frantic. Suddenly, the laughter erupted around me, a chorus of haunting giggles. I pressed my back against the tent wall, heart pounding, as the weight of anticipation fell upon me. What would happen next? I could feel something shifting in the dark. Something was coming. The tent felt like a fragile bubble, and I was trapped inside it. The laughter escalated, surrounding me like a tightening noose. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to shut out the sound, but it only grew louder. In that moment, I could feel their presence. I was being watched. I forced myself to breathe and scan the dim corners of the tent. The flashlight flickered weakly, barely illuminating the edges. I needed to gather my courage. Maybe I was being dramatic. Maybe my mind was just playing tricks on me. But deep down, I understood I had ventured into something much darker. Then, a rustling sound. I jerked my head toward it, the noise coming from just outside my tent. Panic surged within me as I fought the urge to bolt. I heard whispers, hasty and barely coherent, but laden with unmistakable excitement. Suddenly, there was a thud against the side of the tent. My heart leapt into my throat as I scrambled to my feet, nearly tripping over my sleeping bag. "What do you want?" I yelled, my voice trembling as the shadows pressed in closer. The whispers stopped. Silence engulfed the space, taunting me with its emptiness. I waited, breath held, my ears straining to catch any sound. Just then I saw it. The outline of hands pressing against the fabric, the features of a face barely discernible through the tent. I yanked the zipper down, adrenaline fueling my fear. The flashlight cut through the night as I swung the door open. And there they were, children. A group of children, their faces blank and eerily calm. They wore ragged clothes, their eyes wide and unblinking, as if they had materialized from the forest itself. "Come play with us," one of them said, their voice sweet yet sinister. My stomach twisted. "No," I managed to reply, stepping back instinctively. "Stay back." That's when I noticed the symbols painted in mud on their arms, matching those I'd seen in the library. My pulse raced as I recognized them. "What are you?" I whispered, one part of me wanting to flee while another felt rooted to the ground. Instead of answering, the children giggled again, a chorus imbued with an unsettling energy. They looked at one another, then back at me, a unified understanding passing amongst them. Fear gripped me, and I was no longer in control of my body. I turned and bolted into the woods. Branches scratched at my arms, and the laughter trailed behind me, relentless. No longer were they playing. They followed me, and I could hear them gaining ground. "Don't leave us!" they shouted, but I couldn't stop. The shadows were closing in, their presence a suffocating weight as I sprinted deeper into the trees. I searched for the path, desperate to put distance between myself and those children. Suddenly, I stumbled into a clearing. My breath came in sharp gasps as I glanced around, searching for any sign of where to go next. That's when I noticed the massive tree in the center, its bark marked by the symbols, just like the ones in the photo. A fierce gust of wind whirled through the clearing, shaking the branches, and I realized I was not alone. The figure I had seen earlier stepped into view, emerging from the shadows behind the tree. Fear knotted in my stomach, and I took a step back. "Join us," it whispered, its voice a soft echo dancing through the air. I turned to run, but found myself frozen. The shadows were never far behind, and the children had returned, their hands reaching out toward me. Caught in an unending loop of terror, I realized something terrifying. I was no longer just an observer. I was part of a story that was still unfolding, and I needed to find a way out before it consumed me entirely. I stood there, crushed under the weight of choice. The whispers echoed in my mind. "Join us." I felt like a moth drawn to a flame, yet every instinct told me to flee. But my feet wouldn't move. Then one of the children stepped forward, their face illuminated by the moonlight. It was a girl, her hair wild and unkempt, dirt smudged across her cheeks. "We just want to play," she insisted, tilting her head slightly. But there was something off about her smile, something that twisted my stomach into knots. "Play? This isn't a game," I shouted back, my voice shaking with uncertainty. "You need to leave me alone." Her smile faltered for a moment, and I seized the opportunity. My body reacted before my mind could register it. I turned and ran. The cold night air bit at my skin, but I pushed forward. The laughter of the children faded momentarily, but I could still feel their gaze boring into my back. As I dashed through the trees, I quickly realized I was losing my sense of direction. The shadows loomed larger around me, gripping at my legs like tendrils trying to pull me under. I thrust myself deeper into the forest, searching for anything familiar, anything that could lead me back. That's when I spotted the flickering light through the branches ahead. I trudged toward it, fueled by a flicker of hope. But the moment I broke through the underbrush, my heart sank. It was a small cabin, old and decaying, surrounded by a low fence barely holding itself up. The flickering light came from an oil lamp hanging by the door. Someone or something was inside. I hesitated. Should I go in? The laughter returned, echoing all around me. I had nowhere else to turn, and the children were close. I stepped toward the cabin with shaky legs, pushing the door open just enough to peek inside. The interior was dimly lit, the air stale and heavy. Dust motes danced in the light, revealing a single wooden table at the center, strewn with old newspapers and broken toys. But it wasn't the disarray that froze me. It was the figure sitting in the corner. An older woman, her back hunched, stared at me silently. Her hair was a tangled mess of gray, and her hands rested on her knees, twisted in knots that mirrored the gnarled branches outside. I felt a surge of caution. "Who are you?" I asked, forcing myself to keep my voice steady. "Lost," she replied, her voice cracked and low, as if she hadn't spoken in ages. "Like the others." "What others?" I took a step into the cabin, my gut churning at her words. "Where are they?" She gestured toward the door with a shaky hand. "Playing. In the shadows." Just then, a rush of cold air blew in, extinguishing the flickering lamp. Darkness enveloped me, and I could hear the faint giggles of the children outside, echoing against the walls. Panic erupted in my chest. "Get out!" The woman shrieked suddenly, the urgency in her voice snapping me back to reality. "They'll take you too!" Her warning ignited a fight-or-flight response, and I didn't hesitate. I turned and sprinted back out into the night, the laughter crashing over me like a tidal wave. I could hear the footsteps behind me, quick and light, matching my every move. Caught between dread and desperation, I pushed forward through the thickening trees. I had to find refuge before I was consumed entirely. Then, as I raced through the darkness, I stumbled upon something buried in the leaves, an old, weathered symbol etched into the ground. It pulsed with a faint light. That's when I saw it. A shadow loomed larger than before, shifting just outside my line of sight. I took a breath, dread washing over me. I had discovered something I shouldn't have, and I could already feel the children closing in, their laughter vibrating in my bones. I stood frozen, the glow from the symbol casting a pale light across the ground. My heart hammered in my chest, drowning out the laughter of the children that still bounced off the trees. I felt like I was being pulled in every direction, toward the light, away from the shadows. I knelt down, instinct driving me to touch the symbol. The moment my fingertips grazed its surface, a jolt of energy surged through me, igniting every nerve ending. Images flashed in my mind, children running, laughing, fading into the dark. Their faces were strangely familiar yet twisted and haunting. My breath quickened, and I ripped my hand away. I knew I needed to leave. I straightened up and scanned the area, searching for a clear path through the trees. That's when I noticed a figure emerging from the shadows. One of the children. It was the girl with wild hair. She stood at the edge of my vision, grinning wider than before. "Come play with us," she called out, her voice light and airy, but there was a chill in her tone. It didn't sound inviting. It was a command wrapped in innocence. My gut twisted further. "No!" I shouted, willing myself not to tremble. "I won't play!" The laughter increased, a chorus of voices blending into an unsettling harmony. I stumbled backward, my eyes darting for a way out. Then I glimpsed the path to the cabin again, tangled in vines and shadows. It was my only option. I bolted in that direction, adrenaline propelling me forward. The whispering laughter grew louder behind me, echoing through the trees, urging me to stop, to turn around, just play with them. Panic surged, and I pushed forward, praying I'd make it back to the cabin. As I reached the door, I threw it open, rushing inside and slamming it shut behind me. I pressed my back against the door, panting heavily, the air thick and suffocating. I could still hear them outside, the echoes of giggles rattling the walls like an ominous warning. The room felt different now, charged as if something had changed in my absence. My eyes flicked to the woman, her gaze suddenly sharp. "You shouldn't have touched it," she rasped. "They're drawn to it. You're marked now." "Marked?" I echoed, confusion clouding my mind. "What do you mean?" She shifted, her body taut as if bracing for an unseen force. "It binds you to this place. They will not let you leave. You must do something to break the link." I stared at her, fear knotting in my stomach. What can I do? How? But before she could answer, the laughter outside morphed into a chorus of whispers, too many voices overlapping. "Join us. Join us." The cabin felt smaller, closing in around me, and I could sense the children's presence at the windows, their shadows flickering like fireflies. I rushed to the window, peering out. They stood there just beyond the perimeter, staring back at me with hollow eyes, their smiles stretching impossibly wide. I had to act, but time was running out. I looked back at the woman, desperate for guidance. "What do I have to do?" But she didn't answer. Instead, she pointed to the symbol outside, the glow now pulsing like a heartbeat. The answer lay there. I felt the darkness closing in, and realization struck hard. I had to confront what I had awakened. As I took a step toward the door, determined to face the influence of the children, I heard a soft crunch outside, followed by a whisper too close for comfort. "She's going to play." I froze, heart racing. I was about to step into something far deeper and darker than I imagined, and I was not alone. My heart raced as I gripped the doorknob, ready to face whatever awaited me outside. Just as I turned it, the whispers grew louder, merging into one chilling voice. "Play with us." I hesitated for a moment, doubt creeping in. Maybe I could negotiate my way out, but I didn't have the courage to confront them, not yet. In a flash of impulse, I flung the door open. The night air hit me like ice water. Shadows danced around the cabin, swirling and beckoning. The children were closer now, their once distant figures creeping forward, eyes glinting like shards of broken glass. The girl with wild hair took a step toward me, her smile wide, as if she could taste my fear. "Why won't you play?" she asked, tilting her head like a curious animal. The innocence in her tone twisted my gut. There was no joy in their invitation. It was something darker, something demanding. I glanced back into the cabin, where the woman still stood, her expression grave. "You must go to the symbol," she urged, her voice a mere whisper lost in the wilderness. "It's the only way to break the bond." With a gulp, I turned back to the children, their haunting laughter ringing in my ears. "I'll go," I shouted, the words spilling out. I tried to match their cheerfulness, but my voice wavered. "If I play, I can leave?" Their laughter changed, morphing into something sinister. "You can play forever," they teased, each word dripped with malice. Before I could second-guess my decision, I sprinted past them, heart pounding in my chest, and dashed into the darkness toward the glowing symbol. The oppressive feeling of presence followed closely behind me, as if the very air held onto my ankles like iron chains. When I reached the symbol, I hesitated. It pulsed wildly, illuminating the night. I could almost feel it calling me, inviting me to touch it once more. As I lowered my hand toward the glowing surface, an icy tendril wrapped around my wrist. A feeling of dread clawed through my insides. I yanked my hand back. I needed a plan. "What do I do?" I shouted into the stillness, half hopeful for an answer. That's when I noticed a flicker from my peripheral vision, a movement near the edge of the woods. My blood ran cold. The air felt charged with an intent I couldn't understand. Was it another child? I squinted, trying to make out the shape through the dark. This one was taller, more shadow than flesh. The whispers grew louder. "She's one of us." Suddenly the figure emerged fully from the trees. It was not a child at all, but a woman draped in shadows, her face obscured. She moved with an eerie grace, gliding toward me as if the ground beneath her was mere suggestion. "You've touched the symbol," she said, and her voice resonated like death knell. "They cannot let you go. You belong to the night now." A scream lodged in my throat. "No, I refuse." The children's laughter bloomed once more around me, a haunting melody that pulled at my resolve. I felt claustrophobic, trapped between the symbol that offered a potential way out and the night that threatened to consume me. "Choose," the woman said, and I realized it wasn't just my life on the line. It was my very being. The children eyed me from the shadows, waiting with hungry anticipation. And then everything went dark. I jolted awake in a panic, gasping for air. The forest loomed around me, twisted shapes framed against the moonlight. My heart raced, but the whispers were gone. I pushed myself up, disoriented. Had it all been a nightmare? But the cold dampness of the ground reminded me where I was. I glanced around, searching for the children, the woman, anything. The clearing was empty, just the dark trees closing in on me. I took a deep breath. I had to think clearly. The symbol. I scrambled to my feet and darted toward it, but as I approached, I noticed something wasn't right. The symbol flickered subtly, like a light bulb struggling to stay lit. There was no warmth, no invitation, just a chill creeping down my spine. I lifted my hand hesitantly, half expecting another icy tendril to snatch at me. Then I heard them again, the whispers swirling back, slithering around my ears. "Play. Forever." It was almost seductive, enticing me to surrender to my fears. But I remembered the woman's words, and I shook my head. No. As if provoked by my defiance, the whispers grew louder, more chaotic. I closed my eyes and pressed my palms to my ears, but it did nothing. Despair washed over me. I had to break away from this place. Suddenly, something caught my attention, movement in the shadows beyond the clearing. A flicker of light, maybe. I stepped back, torn between my curiosity and the growing dread. Fear prickled at the back of my mind. What if it was the woman or the children returning to drag me back into their game? But instinct urged me forward. I had to know. I edged toward the darkness that pressed against the edge of the clearing, feeling the weight of unseen eyes watching me. I felt like a moth drawn to a flame, my body betraying my logical thoughts. As I moved closer, I could finally see it, a small lantern swaying gently, illuminating a figure beneath the trees. My heart pounded as I recognized the form. It was another child, older than the ones I had seen before. He had wild hair like the girl, but wore a tattered jacket. "Help me!" I found my voice, desperate. "Please, I need to get out of here." He turned slowly, a strange smile creeping across his face. "You shouldn't have touched the symbol," he said with a voice that sounded too old for his age. "Now, you have to play." My breath caught. "What do you mean? I don't want to play." His smile widened, revealing too many teeth. "That's not your choice anymore." Before I could respond, he reached toward the lantern, and the shadows seemed to grow thicker around me, wrapping around my legs like vine. Panic surged through me. I couldn't get trapped again. I turned and bolted back toward the symbol, scrambling over the uneven ground, the laughter echoing in my ears once more. It felt like they were closing in from all sides, the darkness shifting and thickening. And then I saw it. An opening in the trees, a way to escape the encroaching darkness. But just as I approached it, a shadow leapt from behind a tree. My heart dropped. This one was larger than the rest, its eyes burning like coals. "Welcome back," it hissed, and just like that I was surrounded again. I was out of options. I had to fight. But the darkness pressed in, a suffocating weight as I realized I might not be able to escape after all. The game was only just beginning. The darkness surged around me, making it hard to think. I spun on my heels, searching for any way out. The figure loomed closer, each step deliberate and slow. I had to keep moving. I aimed for the gap in the trees, fighting through my instinct to freeze. The whispers twisted around me again, dark and taunting. "Play," they hissed. My feet felt weighed down, but I pushed through. I couldn't let them win. I reached the foliage and ducked beneath the branches, desperate to escape the grip of the shadows. Emerging from the trees, I stumbled forward into a thicket, branches clawing at my skin. I couldn't afford to look back. The rustling behind me became a cacophony that echoed in my mind, spurring me on even faster. Then everything shifted. The trees thinned, exposing a small path barely wide enough for a person. The air felt different here, thicker but oddly crisp. I took a moment to catch my breath, chest heaving as I scanned the area. What I saw next twisted my stomach. It was a large clearing ahead, encircled by more trees, but in the middle lay a circle of stones, each marked with the same symbol I had seen before. It pulsed gently, like a heartbeat. I stepped closer, gripping my throat tight in a mix of fear and curiosity. Suddenly a voice rang clear from behind me. "You can't escape." It was the boy again, his wild hair dancing in the breeze, eyes glinting with mischief. I turned slowly, heart racing. Shadows flowed from him like smoke, spilling across the ground, reaching for my feet. "Why are you doing this?" I shouted, defiance lacing my voice even as dread coiled in my gut. "What do you want?" He tilted his head, eyes glimmering with something darkly joyful. "Forever can be fun. Don't you want to play?" "Not like this," I replied, backing away. The stones loomed behind me, and the urge to flee washed over me again. As I backed into the circle, something shifted. The stones began to warm, glowing softly at first. The boy's smile faltered for a moment, confusion flashing across his features. "That's not supposed to happen," he muttered, his tone darkening. I didn't stop to question it. I felt the pull of the stone beneath me. It was like the earth was calling me home. "I will not play your games," I shouted, then pressed my palm against the glowing stone. A surge of energy rushed through me, the light blinding. The earth trembled beneath my feet as power flickered through the air. The boy's eyes widened, and for a brief moment I thought I saw fear. Then everything went dark. I felt myself falling, the sensation both terrifying and exhilarating all at once. Was this escape? Or was I plunging deeper into the nightmare? I didn't know, but I felt alive, the whispers fading as I fell. Then suddenly I landed on something hard, and the world came rushing back. I blinked into the starlit sky, lying in grass. I realized I was no longer in the forest. In fact, it looked like my old backyard from years ago. But I wasn't alone. A figure stood at the edge, their back turned to me. My heart raced again as I forced myself to sit up. "Who's there?" I called out cautiously. The figure turned slowly, and a familiar laugh echoed through the night. "I'm back." It was the girl from my dreams, her eyes glinting with a familiar hunger. And that smile, was it welcoming or was it sinister? My escape was just another beginning. I pushed myself to my feet, my heart pounding. The unwelcome thrill of recognition sent a chill through me. "What do you want?" I asked, keeping my voice steady despite the tremor inside. The girl took a step forward, her dark hair framing her face, eyes shimmering like stars caught in a net. "How long has it been?" she mused, studying me as if I were an old book she'd just found. "You look different, but I can still see the light in you." Her words twisted in my gut. Something about how she said light felt wrong. It felt like an omen. The shadows I had fought so hard to escape felt alive again, lurking just beyond the familiar trees of my old backyard. "Why are you here?" I pressed, trying to shove the fear down. Memories of laughing around campfires and feeling safe flooded back. But they were all tainted now, every perfect moment undercut by the nightmares inherited from that woods. She smiled wider. "To bring you back." Her tone was playful, as if we were about to share a secret. "You've been away for too long. It's time to join the fun." "Fun? This isn't fun," I snapped, anger bubbling inside me. "You think this is a game?" Her laughter echoed, a melody wrapped around something dark. "But that's where you're wrong. Life is a game, and you've been the best player. Now you can't just leave." I took a step back, scanning the thickening shadows around us. "I'm not playing anymore." Just as I said it, the ground trembled beneath my feet, and the circle of stones began to glow again. Only this time, the light held a sinister undertone. It pulsed menacingly, and the whispers returned, swirling in a chorus that filled my head. "Join. Play. Forever." "No!" I yelled, clenching my fists. I needed to think. I couldn't let this place pull me in. "You can't take me back." The girl's expression changed, her smile slipping as she narrowed her eyes. "You can't fight what's inevitable." She pointed towards the stones, the light from them flickering like a heartbeat. "You need to embrace your true self." I felt a sudden thrust of energy pull me towards the stones, a magnetic force that threatened to consume me. Desperation clawed at my insides. "Stop!" I screamed, willing my legs to move. I stumbled backwards, away from the light, every instinct screaming to flee. Then I spotted something glimmering in the grass to my side, a rock, smooth and dark, perhaps left behind from my childhood. With a surge of hope, I lunged for it. I raised it as a makeshift weapon, feeling foolish but determined. "Stay back!" I shouted, setting my jaw. The girl paused, a flicker of surprise in her eyes, but the shadows around her surged, undeterred. "Do you really think that can stop me?" she retorted, her voice low, almost a growl. As she stepped closer, the air crackled with tension. I knew I was running out of time. I was back in a familiar place, but something was wrong. Everything was twisted, alive with the echoes of my past. But that thought barely registered before a new realization struck. That stone wasn't just a rock. I had seen it before, somewhere deep in those woods. And if I remembered where it belonged, I might just find the key to escape this nightmare. But how could I trust my memories when everything had changed? Before I could decide, I felt the shadows closing in. I had to act fast. "What happens if I don't play?" I asked, trying to distract her, buying myself time. Her smile faltered again, and for a split second uncertainty crossed her face. "You'll regret it." With that ominous warning hanging in the air, I tightened my grip on the rock, staring down the girl who wanted to pull me into darkness once more. And then I braced myself for whatever was about to come. I took a deep breath, my heart hammering in my chest, feeling the weight of the girl's gaze pierce through me like a physical force. "What happens if I don't play?" I repeated, hoping to draw out more than just the sinister grin she wore so well. Her smile flickered again, a fleeting expression of doubt. "You won't understand," she said, her voice wavering slightly, the shadows around her pulsing as if they had life of their own, eager to latch onto my fear. My grip on the smooth rock tightened. "Maybe I don't want to," I shot back, an unexpected defiance rising in my throat. "You can't force me into your game. I won't be stuck here." From the corner of my eye, I saw the strange light from the stones begin to shimmer more intensely, sending out waves of energy that tingled against my skin. The air thickened with anticipation, and a sense of desperation filled the space between us. "Choose." The girl's voice raised an octave, each word dripping with urgency as shadows spiraled around her. "You know part of you wants to play. Haven't you always been a part of us?" Her words coiled around my mind as I caught a glimpse of what I had become. A puppet, tangled in strings crafted by uncertainty and fear. A surge of energy from within the stones called to something deep inside me, something that had been dormant since my camping trip. But what was that energy? Was it truly a connection to the dark, or was it a flicker of the light I clung to despite the darkness that surrounded me? In that moment of reflection, clarity jolted through me. I shook my head violently, my voice rising in defiance. "I'm not a game piece. I don't belong here." The girl's expression twisted into something more menacing and raw. "Then face the truth, Hunter," she spat, flicking her wrist and sending tendrils of shadow toward me. "You think you can just leave?" The shadows snaked around me, graze against my skin like ice. But just as they began to draw closer, the stone I gripped pulsated with warmth, illuminating my surroundings and casting a golden hue against the encroaching darkness. I didn't know how, but I could feel the light within me clash against the darkness, creating an invisible wall. The laughter echoed again, but this time it carried a different weight. Uncertainty cratered it. "You're a light in the dark," shouted a voice that seemed to weave through the laughter, pulling its sound apart. "Then let the light free," I whispered back, raising the rock high above my head. "I won't give up." As if fueled by my determination, the stone flared brighter, its glow expanding outward in a brilliant explosion. The shadows flinched, recoiling as though burnt by the radiance. The girl's confident demeanor wavered, the whispering voices now stammered in confusion. "No!" she shrieked, extending her hands as if to reel the darkness back in. "You can't." But I already felt the walls crashing down around me. The shadows dissipated into wisps, swirling and fading under the power radiating from the stone. I pressed forward, determined to reclaim my freedom, knowing I had to grab hold of whatever remnants of light I could find. With each step I took, The whispers faltered, chaotic energy whirling around me like a storm. The girl's features warped between anger and desperation, her expression losing its power as the reality of my choice pressed against her. "You're making a mistake," she screamed, but I didn't stop to challenge her. "I'm choosing for myself," I shouted, my voice vibrant against the darkness. I pushed past the shadows, and with one last surge I slammed the stone into the ground, feeling a tremor reverberate through my bones. There was a blinding flash, and then I felt an emptiness swallow me whole, darkness pulling at my essence as the world erupted into light. I could hear the laughter screaming in protest as I was torn away, the shadows dissipating like smoke in the wind. And then, silence. I opened my eyes, blinking against the daylight that streamed in through trees, their bark gentle and comforting. I was no longer in my backyard, no longer entangled in the suffocating grip of the woods. I was back in the real forest, my breathing heavy, my pulse racing, free. But the relief felt hollow as shadows still lingered at the corners of my vision, whispering, weaving around the dark trees. I stood up shakily, heart thudding like an unyielding drum, and blinked back, memories flooded with laughter. The weight of questions weighed heavier, tightening my chest. Was it real? I whispered to the woods, a chill creeping over me, twisting through my thoughts like a stray limb. What was I truly a part of? The trees rustled as if in response. A sinister laughter carried on the wind, haunting yet distant. I took a step back, realizing the sun seemed less bright than before. The boundaries of reality blurred. I could never fully escape the feeling that they were still out there, hiding, waiting in the shadows. Maybe some stories never ended, only paused, waiting for the right moment to begin again. And as I walked away from that haunted place, I understood I may have broken one link, but the questions that connected it to my soul remained. What had I awakened? What had I truly escaped? And deep down, did the darkness still follow? I turned back to look one last time, and in the depth of the trees, I swore I could see a flash of pale eyes staring back, just beyond the sunlight. I didn't know how long it would be until they called me again. I stepped away, uncertainty lingering in my heart, knowing I would always wonder about the woods that held so many secrets.